and welcome to the Supporting Autism Mama podcast, where we don't gatekeep our wins as special needs parents. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most gate-kept topics of all, a dad's perspective. Welcome my first ever guest speaker, my husband, Jason, the father of my children. Today, we're going to get his perspective on this whole autism journey that we've been going on together. There are a lot of information out there about moms' perspectives on their autism journey as a mother. There's not a lot on a dad's perspective, so I wanted to get his intake and some of his thoughts in our journey. So what was your moment like when you first got the diagnosis with the boys?
It was fine. It was expected. If you remember, my mom had pointed out, finally got to where we were location-wise and was able to meet him. She pulled me aside after seeing him and said, "Hey, there's just some things he's doing that you might want to have him screened for autism." And she said this because, as you know, I have two brothers on the spectrum, both with Asperger's syndrome. And so she said, "Hey, there's some things I noticed that you should probably get looked at." So that was kind of on my radar. And so honestly, getting a diagnosis was relieving because it gave some clarity to our situation. Then the kind of reality sets in that there's really no roadmap or place to go. It's kind of all on you as the parent, and that just becomes an opportunity for you to step up. It's not something you necessarily expect. It becomes an opportunity to be present in your child's life, but it's just in a much different way.
How has fatherhood been different than what you had originally pictured or expected growing up when you thought about your future children?
Growing up, I had one brother in particular who church was very difficult for him. School was very difficult. A lot of things. He didn't have any serious delays in terms of speech or hygiene or anything like that. He had some sensory sensitivities that made it very difficult for him in places with a lot of people. I never pictured that would be a part of my life. I saw my life more being, going to sporting events with the kids, like playing music with them and doing a number of other things, camping and enjoying the outdoors and traveling and, going to seeing places. I grew up out west and, taking the kids out there to see kind of at least where I come from and what the land looks like out there were always things I kind of thought about. Our oldest and our middle child have sensory sensitivities that limit that greatly. But it still hasn't changed, really. I think the important thing is to recognize that there is a big change, but it doesn't necessarily change that and mean that you cannot do those things, that you still can't go on vacations, that you still can't help them enjoy music or expose them to things that you find fun and interesting and help them discover their own likes. It's just going to be in a different fashion. It's not going to be
cookie cutter.
Exactly. You may just have to go about it a bit different and be a little more careful in how you introduce those things, but you'll find that children or people on the spectrum are just like everyone else with desires and hopes and wants and needs. It's just a very specific and very different set of needs than the average neurotypical person deals with. So,
like even when we found we were pregnant with Vinny, I remember seeing a lot online of never stop traveling. You never have to stop doing these things that you always wanted to do, because we got pregnant when I was 19, you were 21, so we were still kids. It's like, oh, we can still live our life. We'll just take the kid right along with us. And obviously that changed quite a bit. Having a child on the spectrum allows us to get to know our children on a deeper level, because the cookie cutter stuff that works sometimes with neurotypical children is not going to work with our kids. And so even stuff we can still go on vacation, does it take more planning? Does it take more creativity on our part? Absolutely.
Exactly. And I guess something to add on to that I've been thinking about a lot about lately is people that have children on the spectrum are going to go to therapy. The most important thing to remember about therapy and kind of like the rest of these things that you go expose your children to is that they can experience and it can do great wonders for them. And therapy is literally just playing. That's all therapy is. It's just playing with the child, but in an organizing, goal-oriented. Therapy sounds kind of like a scary word. Like there's a bit of a negative connotation with it sometimes, that you need therapy because you're limited. And that's not necessarily the case. It's just they may need help navigating some of the things that they're dealing with, and playing is a good way to do that because they learn boundaries, they learn rules, they learn how to set goals, they learn how to meet those goals. They have consequence, they have reward when they meet therapeutic goals, which therapy is if you sit in on a therapy session with your child or a child on the spectrum, you'll find that they just play with them. They swing, they play games. It's just it's organized. It's organized in a manner that they can help them reach milestones or get them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And so that's kind of like the same approach to vacation. It's the same approach to everyday life or going to the store. You just do it in a little bit different of a manner. For Max, bringing a blanket to the store with us so he can sit in the cart and cover himself up with a blanket, or bringing a sweatshirt with him that he can cover himself up with, is how Max makes it through the store and does well. But in that, Max has been exposed to the store. We don't keep him out of the store. He finds the store uncomfortable, but through various things, he can find comfort.
Just also point out, I really liked a point you made about therapy. If you are feeling anxious about therapy at all, I think one of the best things you can do is just go and sit in on a therapy session, especially if it's a new therapist, because you want to make sure they know what the heck they're doing. But also because I think it does ease some of that anxiety, because really they do just play with your child. And then also you can see how they play with your child and then take it home and play with your child in the same way. So they're getting therapy more often. So
as we have done this social media journey, see a lot of people that don't agree with some of the things we do or think that we're providing our children a crutch. Anybody who's going through some sort of physical therapy needs quite literally a crutch to make it to where they can perform physical tasks as they did before, if not better. There's no 0 to 100.
When you're on your autism journey, one of my favorite things that we get to experience with our children is we get to experience every single milestone. With our neurotypical son, or who I believe is neurotypical, there's a lot of stuff that he's just doing and we don't have to coach him to do. He just picks up a toy and he just plays with it. Cup one day and just drink out of the straw. There was no playing. We didn't have to research that. We didn't have to do anything extra. He just did it. Children with developmental delay, we do get to experience every single milestone. So as a father, what are some small wins that have meant the world to you and our 2 older boys?
First off, a win that I think came a little bit later, more recently, is I've kind of already mentioned, but is recognizing that producing all these things like therapy and experiencing their meltdowns out in public and in other places are in a way wins, because you get to see in real time where your child kind of meets their breaking point. And you get to learn how to help them. And you get to show them in that moment that what they're experiencing is real and that you understand that and you can help them through it. Recognizing that they see the world much different, in the same way and in much different ways than me. Experiencing those with my children have been some small wins, and in many cases big wins. One of the big wins, when Vinny started to allow us to brush his teeth for a very short amount of time, but every time we brushed his teeth, he'd throw up. And to see him not throwing up after we brushed his teeth for longer than we did in the beginning, and watching that progress over time. Brushing teeth, Vinny has made abundantly aware, is very uncomfortable for him. And it is, he says he's afraid. He's always afraid to brush his teeth. And that's a real and visceral thing for him. He is fearful to brush his teeth because it's uncomfortable. It makes him sick. It makes him, who knows what he experiences from a physical standpoint, knowing that he has to do that every day. Some weeks are better than others where he participates, and other weeks we spend 15 minutes trying to brush his teeth, but that was a great win. And for Maxwell, honestly, it's like every 3 months we get a win with Max, because it's like he has a breakthrough and then he kind of plateaus. But lately I remember one night Kimberly was at work and I was home with the kids and everyone was asleep. Max has a hard time falling asleep in his bed. He fell asleep in his bed that night, which was good. But about 30 minutes after he fell asleep, I was sitting in my room, I was doing something, and I hear, Dad. And I was like, that's Max. And so I got up and I thought, he's calling my name. And I peek in his room and he's sitting there with the blanket over him, half asleep, and he's saying, Dad. And I said, I'm here, buddy. And I went and laid down with him and he went back to sleep. See Max actually communicating and using his limited vocal abilities, call out Dad, which is very rare. He doesn't really ever do that or do it as clear. But he just wanted to know where I was at and to come lay down with him. So gradually, over very many years, began to use his vocal inflection, but to use it effectively was a win for me. That's beautiful. Whether your child is on the spectrum or not, they can have the same accomplishments in life. Vinny was telling me and Kimberly the other day that he wants to grow up and have children. Vinny navigating that is going to be very different from any other person, but that's completely within Vincent's ability and capabilities and future, if he desires that. And I'm excited to help him with that. But to hear Vinny voice some of the things that he would like and that he would like to do. Who knows, his thoughts and ideas may change, but our job is to help support them in their good things and the good things they want to do. And so I would never tell Vinny that is not something he cannot do, because it's not true. Shouldn't limit him in that fashion. So that was a big one to see him start to, think about the future and maybe some things that he can have and that he wants. So that was good. Another one. The one thing about nonverbal children in particular, like Max, is that you living with a child on the spectrum, you will get the privilege of being a subject matter expert on your child. That's why autism spectrum disorder is called a spectrum, because everyone falls not only in a different place on the spectrum, but within different limits and barriers in regard to very specific things to them. It's completely capable I believe one day doing a lot of great things, a lot of things that we couldn't even really imagine or foresee. Now at this point in time, it's just our job to help him take whatever steps he needs to make to get there.
Has this journey impacted our relationship or any other husband-wife relationship out there?
Something that's difficult, and I feel like everyone is married, and as the years pile up between getting married, it does get difficult at times. I'm sure everyone is, those of you who are listening who have been in a marital relationship or are, recognize that. It's important to recognize that the needs that your children have, especially when it comes to being on the spectrum, because they require so much attention, usually is a very big, can be a very big strain on your marriage. It's important that you and your spouse are unified on a number of things, on a particular, unified on what direction you're trying to go with your children and their goals. And that's not to say you make that the object of your existence in your marriage, because if that's the case, I think you'll have much harder times ahead. But to recognize that it's a part of your life for both of you, it's part of your calling in life, and you will have this for the rest of your life to be in their life. To recognize that, but don't let it bring you down. Some days it's hard to deal with as a reality, and other days it's not, because your life is never going to be the same. It's not going to be like it was, and it's not going to be like you imagined, and that's okay. You have a privilege and an opportunity to be able to spend time with some pretty incredible human beings. It's important that make that a high priority and be unified with your spouse or your significant other on it, but to take time to be with each other, not in terms of talking about therapy and goals and all these other things. Kimberly and I do quite a bit of that, and frankly, it occupies much of our conversation in life because it's a big part of our life. Even now, to do this and record this, my in-laws, her parents, have the children right now. You do need to take some time for yourselves, take some time to get to know each other, your children, as your children continue to change and grow and become complete people. You will as well, but it's very important to just slow down. Recognize that even though taking care of your children, especially those with special needs, is a high priority, it can't be the number one priority all the time.
I'm really good, even today, actually. So Max gives a whole new level of, like, I don't know if you've heard the term Velcro child. Have you heard the term Velcro child? Yeah. I would say definitely, at least. Mm-hmm. Max is attached to my hip 24/7, wants to be wherever I'm at all the time, which is great. I love that. I love my child. I want him to be with me. I want him to love me. Sometimes it's exhausting. He's a very physical child, so he's always, and I like my personal space. I've never really been a toucher or a hugger, and Max is all about that. And so something I think that at least Jason's done really good for me, I don't know if I've reciprocated it, but is I kind of, even today, I went up to him like, hey, tag, you're it. Like, I need a second. I need a break just from this. Like, I literally just need to go into the other room because I'm touched out at the moment. And he's really good about reciprocating that. Going and coming in our little sensory room, our little playroom, hanging out with Max, so I can have a minute to just gather my thoughts and then get back and give 100% to the kids, because you can't always give 100%. So I think that it's good to recognize when your spouse isn't able to do that and step in when they need it.
If it's at home around all the kids, just to take some time and relax and be like, today is, we don't have therapy today. Maybe we still do some things with the kids, but not as rigorous. Kind of let them navigate throughout the day, do the things they want, and enjoy the things that they find pleasing, that make them happy. So
we can sometimes, every once in a while, find time throughout that same day to find things that help fill our cups, because we need to be doing that too. A little bit more than we probably do, but that's a topic for another day. All right. Our last question for today. What is something that you wish more people understood about being a father to a special needs child?
There's a lot of people, like for me, for example, I work at a big hospital in St. Louis, and often I go there and I'm on call. So I go there and I say hi to everybody. I make sure we check our equipment and everything, make sure it's ready, and then I disappear. I go away. I don't spend a lot of time around these people or mingling with my coworkers, just because going to work is usually I wouldn't say a break, but it's an opportunity where I'm not having to pay attention to preserving the life of little people, my little people at that point in time. Obviously,
his job is actually preserving the life of little people, so that's not really true.
Yeah, I work at a children's hospital, and so when we go on calls, it's easier because I can be dedicated to the call and the tasks at hand. But going to work, like, some people don't understand why, or maybe think I don't want to talk to them or be around them, and maybe don't understand why much of the time I'm tired and much of the time I just don't want to talk to people. They don't have any children on the spectrum, or maybe don't have any family members, maybe don't have very many children, which is all fine, and people can choose to conduct their lives how they wish and as they find comfortable. But a lot of them wonder maybe why I don't pick up extra shifts at work, or won't go to an optional class in the city on something else in relation to our job, which are all things I am interested in, but there's things to do at home. I wish sometimes more people understood that, work for me is just a means to an end, and being home is where I want to be. If I could find some way to work and just be at home with the children 90% of the time, I would do that if it was possible. I just wish people a little more understanding of the workload, and not necessarily that I need a break or that I need them to ask me about it or to offer anything, but that they just recognize that when you're at work and you may have a patient or deal with someone on the spectrum, and it takes a lot of time and effort to help them. Is there an environment? Everything we do is uncomfortable. That's life at home for me. Sometimes some days are really great and other days are very challenging. Most special needs parents, that's all they really need. They just need someone to listen and not judge them for it.
I work in an ER, and I also kind of go off and sit by myself as quickly as I can. Also, and I tell my employers and I tell my coworkers this, as a nurse, you're kind of expected to pick up extra shifts. I feel like anyone in the medical field, it's just kind of expected. We work 3 days a week, so you're expected to pick up that extra time or go to these extra classes. And that's just, for us right now, home is where we need to be 90% of the time, more if we could. Always tell my employers I work 3 days too many already. I cannot give you any extra, because that's exactly how it feels like at home, because we're constantly running on fumes. And so maybe more people recognize that and understood that. Maybe just people in the medical field, we all need to chill. Do you have any final thoughts?
You want your child to be happy, and you want to see them happy, you want to see them grow, and you want to see them flourish. Just play with them. That time to play with them and do something they enjoy. And then it's at times when you're playing with them, make it a little more rigid, make a goal of it. On the swing with Max, sometimes trying to get Max to say something or vocalize something with 3, 2, 1, go, and get him to say something when I say go is therapy. You're teaching Max that there's an order, and that in order to go on the swing, we need to say go. We count down and then we go. Helping Max recognize that his words, his voice has something, has a power, has an effect. And recognizing that therapy is synonymous with playing, and that's what it should be.
All right, and just our little plug here at the end. If you found anything helpful, if you've liked any of the things that we've discussed, please consider giving this a like. If you found a couple things that you really loved, please consider giving us a follow and subscribing. Maybe one of us could stay home with one of the babies a little bit more. If we're able to grow this channel, that would be so great. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Do we really need all these therapies?